morning and welcome. I'm so excited to be with you guys tonight and talking about, it's not really my favorite topic. Fear is not exactly everybody's favorite topic, but I certainly think it's a really important conversation to be having right now. Tonight we are talking about feeling the fear and doing it anyway. So I want to talk to you tonight about how you can really find some concrete, at least understandings, and redefine the meaning perhaps of some of the fears that you might be experiencing. I came up with this topic and I'm specifically teaching fear tonight because I actually did a survey with the people who are my subscribers to my list. And I asked them, what do you think is the biggest thing that's holding you back right now? There's a certain undercurrent, I think, of uncertainty right now, maybe I think on a global level. And that uncertainty sometimes can manifest as fear. And actually tonight when we talk about fear and what are some of the sources of fear, having a certain amount of uncertainty about the future can trigger fear, a specific kind of fear. We're going to talk about where does that come from? Are you more prone to that kind of fear? What are some things you can do to start working on managing and taming that fear so that it doesn't hold you back from creating what you really want, what you really deserve in your life? Or you'll get more out of the presentation tonight is if you have your human design chart with you. You'll get stuff out of the webinar no matter what. But if you have your chart handy, you'll get even more out of it because then you can look at your chart and see what is specifically going on in your chart and how does that relate to the topic that we're going to talk about tonight. For those of you who may not know who I am, I'm not going to make this super long because I want to make sure that I cover all the content that we have tonight. But my name is Karen Curry Parker. I am the best-selling author of Understanding Human Design, the New Astrology, and the Science of Discovering Who You Truly Are. I've also been a life coach since I was 25 years old. So I was actually literally a life coach before life coaching had a title. And I studied with Thomas Letter, the founder of the life coaching profession back in the day. And so one of my passions is not only helping you discover the truth of who you are and stepping more fully into your magnificence. My other passion is helping you really live and maximize your full potential so that you can really do what you came here to do and be who you came here to be. So when the years that I've worked as a coach, fear is definitely one of the biggest challenges and one of the biggest places where people hold themselves back. Fear very naturally causes us to go inward and to resist and to hide or to run sometimes. We hold on to fear in our bodies. When we are afraid, we procrastinate. When we are afraid, we resist. And it's a big, big thing that oftentimes keeps us from really fulfilling our full potential. So the question that I'm asking you guys tonight, and this is just something for you to play with in your consciousness, is what if there was a way for you to get to the root of fear and to fully activate your courage? That's my goal. That I'm going to show you some ways to get to the root of your fear and fully activate your courage tonight. But before I can really talk about that, I have to give you at least a brief introduction to the human design system and what human design is all about. So human design is a cutting-edge personality assessment tool. It's practical, it's simple, it's reliable, and really, most importantly, it is life-changing. Human design is a really, it's not a brand new system anymore. It's been around since 1987, but it is innovative and I think very different. Still, I think a lot of people have not heard about human design yet. It is a synthesis of Eastern and Western astrology, the Chinese I Ching, the Hindu chakra system, the Judaic Kabbalah, the Chinese I Ching, and quantum physics. So it really is a synthesis of a lot of ancient esoteric sciences. And those esoteric sciences create a system that in and of itself is very different than any of these individual pieces. So sometimes when people see human design, they want to look at all the different pieces in the chart. I'm going to very gently say to you, they're there, but they're kind of mutated. Human design in and of itself is its own beast. It's its own creation. So how does it work? The way it works is we take your birthday, birth time, and birthplace, we've put it into a computer program, and it spits out a chart that looks very much like this. It won't look just like this because everybody's chart's a little bit different. But this chart is basically a map. And this map shows you your life purpose. It shows you your strengths. It shows you your weaknesses. It shows you your potential for wisdom, how you best make decisions, how you experience the world, and so much more. The thing that I think is so important when we talk about the chart is that it's also a map, okay? It's a very powerful map, and it's actually a blueprint for the human experience and condition. So when we talk tonight, we are going to be talking specifically about elements in your unique human design chart, and each one of you is going to have a very different chart. But we're also going to be talking about this chart represents the entire archetype, all the catalogs of archetypes of the being human and the human experience. So I'm going to be talking about the chart generally, but I'm also going to be talking about the chart specifically. So as I'm talking about it, please know that I'm looking at the big picture, and I'm showing you the big picture, what's possible for all of us as human beings. And I'm also going to bring it down more specifically to what's actually in your chart. When you look at the chart, you're going to see there are 9 geometric shapes in that chart, or in that triangle. Those 9 geometric shapes represent 9 energy centers. Each one of these energy centers is responsible for processing a different kind of energy. The energy centers loosely correlate to the 7 chakras from the Hindu chakra system. And each one of these centers is responsible for, I like to use the word metabolizing or processing different kinds of energies. So the energies that are up at the top of the chart in the head are all about the mind. The throat is about communication. The centers below the throat are all about power, manifesting, emotions, energy center, different kinds of energies for creation, direction, and even energies for managing and allocating physical material resources. For all intents and purposes, tonight we're really going to focus strictly on 2 centers. So the first center that we're going to focus on is the G center. This is sort of the mother lode of the chart, so to speak, to a certain degree. The G center, which is the diamond in the middle of the chart, looks kind of right where your heart would be on the chart, is the center in the chart for love and direction in life. You actually have within you a magnetic process. And actually, when we look at science, science now knows that the heart has a magnetic resonance. When we talk about the magnetic resonance of the heart in human design, we're talking about the attractive capacity of this G center. This G center has the capacity to attract into your life, to pull into your experience everything you need to fulfill your destiny and to do what you came here to do in the most delicious, juicy, and powerful way possible. When we look at this diamond, this beautiful diamond in this chart, what we see is that archetypically, the energies that come off of this diamond, the center for direction, are related to incredible and vital direction-giving energies in the human experience. I'm going to go around those energies and just briefly describe them. And then I want to talk just for a second about how does that relate back to our human experience. So in the G center, we have the energy for self-love. We have the energy for having an equal voice and power. We have the capacity and the energy for making a unique contribution to the world. We have the energy here for forgiveness. We have the energy to be and to have and experience a deep connection to spirit, particularly spirit as source of all good things in your life. We have the energy for physical health and vitality. We have the energy for receiving. We are actually designed to receive, not necessarily to create. We have the energy here for receiving all the resources you need, including money, relationships, synchronicity, etc. We are designed to receive everything we need to make our unique contribution to the world. And we are designed ultimately through this 15 gate over here. And I'm not going to talk too much about gates in this part of the class, but I'll talk a little bit more about gates later. We have the gate 15, which is all about fellowship or brotherhood and sisterhood. What that means is this I'm going to kind of go broad and bring that in more succinctly. We are designed to love ourselves, to be powerful, to express the authentic essence of who we are in everything we do, and to do that uncompromisingly. We are designed to experience life, forgive whatever happens to us, let go of the past, and move forward. We are designed to take our direction in life from our connection to source and spirit. We are designed to be physically healthy and vital. We are designed to be fully supported in creating whatever it is we want to create in life. And we are designed to do whatever we do in fellowship, meaning whatever we end up doing is not supposed to hurt others, but is in fact supposed to be a contribution to the greater good of the whole. If at any point in time in your life you are struggling with any of these energies, if you are struggling with self-love, with feeling powerful, with feeling authentic, with letting go of the past and moving forward, with accessing your connection to spirit and source, if you're struggling with your physical health and vitality, if you are having a hard time allowing yourself to receive, or if you are trying to do something, and I know you guys wouldn't do this, but it happens sometimes, you're trying to do something that's actually not for the greater good of humanity, this direction-giving center in the chart will take your life in the direction that you need to go so that you can learn whatever you need to learn so that you can start to live out higher aspects of these energies. So bringing it down an even deeper level with this. Let's say you're struggling with self-love, which if you are, don't worry about it because you're not alone. I would say that 99% of my clients struggle with self-love. If you're struggling with self-love, you might find that you're in a relationship pattern where you keep attracting to yourself the same kind of partner over and over and over again. And you might be asking yourself, oh my God, what is wrong with me? Why do I keep doing this? Part of what's happening here is this magnetic force in the heart of your being is continuing to attract to you the same circumstance and situation because you are being given an opportunity to learn from the situation what you need to do to make a stand for yourself and to love yourself better. This is true of all of the energies in this G center. If they're not functioning in the highest way possible, this G center energy, this magnetic force in the heart of your being is going to call into your life all the experiences you need so that you can really live out your destiny of loving yourself, being powerful, making your contribution to the world, letting go of the past, taking your direction from spirit, being healthy, strong, and vital, receiving everything you need from the world, and doing it for the greater good of the whole, and for yourself as well. In the name of just keeping it simple, what that means is that we are designed to feel good being who we are, doing what we came here to do. And by the way, we're also designed to be nice to each other. All right. When we look at the chart, what we see is that pain, anytime we experience pain, and when I say pain, I'm not talking just about physical pain. When you have physical pain, when you have emotional pain, when you have spiritual pain, when you have frustration, bitterness, anger, disappointment, when you have pain in your life, that pain is a barometer that's telling you how close or how far away are you from expressing your true self. Okay? When you're not living true to yourself, you're going to experience pain. And that pain shows up in lots of different ways. And if we don't manage that pain, and here's what we do typically. Typically, we treat the pain, but we don't treat the underlying issue of the pain. We treat, we put Band-Aids, we take ibuprofen, we even in our coaching, we use techniques that are about getting people out of pain. And that's great. That's a vital, crucial first step to healing, for sure. You got to get out of pain. But that's only the first step. Once you get out of pain, you have to get in there and figure out what's the root cause of the pain. Because when you can do that, then you can start to bring out the full potential of who you are. Here's the thing that I find to be universally true. The more you live off your chart, meaning that human design chart, your unique human design chart is a map, a blueprint of who you are. It shows you exactly what you need to do to live out your life purpose and your destiny. the more you are living off the chart, or if you want to just use simple vocabulary, the more you are living in a lifestyle that is not a reflection of your true self, your authentic self, the greater pain and suffering you will be experiencing, and the greater chance you'll have for physical illness. Because the manifestation, what happens, and I'll show you this later, what happens in your mental body, what happens in your emotional body, what happens, the pain that we carry when we're not being true to who we are, or the exhaustion that happens from the amount of effort we have to exert when we are wearing a mask and trying to be something that we're not, wears us down and ultimately causes physical illness and exhaustion, suffering, and pain. All right, that's it for the doom and gloom, I think, for the rest of this presentation. So I'm going to show you some ways so that you can get out of pain and live true to yourself, so you don't have to do that whole doom and gloom thing anymore. The second center that we're going to talk about tonight is the Spleen Center. Okay, so you'll see on the left-hand side of your chart, there's a center. For some of you, that center is going to be brown. For some of you, that center is going to be white. The Spleen Center is the center for instinct, health, survival, and time. You might wonder, okay, so how is instinct, health, survival, and time all connected? Think about instinct for just a minute. First of all, when you think about instinct, in order for you to be able, your instinct basically is going to tell you when you're about to do something that could potentially threaten your health, right? When you go to get on an airplane and you get to the airport and you get that feeling like, oh, I shouldn't get on this plane, and you don't get on the plane, that's your instinct. And you not being on that plane maybe is what you needed to do to protect your health. When you're out foraging in the forest, hopefully this is true. I say hopefully this is true because a couple of my adult children are big time into foraging, and they forage for mushrooms all the time, which totally freaks me out as a mom, but I'm working with that. But if you go out into the forest and you're foraging for mushrooms and you see like, oh, weird green mushrooms with purple polka dots, and your instinct goes, ooh, don't eat that mushroom. That instinctive response is protecting your health, and it's helping you survive, right? But here's the other thing, and here's how timing rolls into it. Let's say you're out foraging for mushrooms and you hear the heavy breathing of a large bear behind you in the forest, right? Your response to that bear is going to be very much dependent on timing, right? You have to be in the moment to respond to that threat of that bear. If you're sitting there in the forest going, wow, there's a bear behind me. Let me Google, let me get my phone and let me think about, oh yeah, and then, okay, so Google says this, and then I need to weigh my options. Should I meditate the bear away? Should I do some virtual EFT on the bear? Should I run? You don't have time when you're in your instinct, when you're having an instinctive response to something. It's very time specific. You're not going to wake up tomorrow morning and think about, well, maybe I'll deal with the bear now. You're going to deal with it, and you're going to deal with it now. In fact, your instinct's going to kick you into a fight or flight response. It's going to stimulate your adrenaline system, and you are going to, without even a whole lot of thought, because this is how instinct works, it's not really a thought thing, it's going to take over your being, and you're going to react to whatever the situation is that is potentially threatening your health and survival, and you're going to do it in a timely manner. All right. So let's talk about how all of this relates to fear and what you can do to begin to reframe your fear, get new understandings of fear, and start managing your fear from a totally different place. Your human design chart is a map to help you discover your source of fear. But before we can really go deep into understanding all this, I want to lay out for you guys some really, really simple, basic human design concepts so that you can understand a little bit more how your energy system works and how you experience some of the fear energies that we're going to be talking about for the rest of the evening. So if you look at your human design chart, if you have your chart, you can look at it, and in just a minute, I'll tell you how you can get your chart. If you have your human design chart, you're going to see that on that chart, some of those 9 centers, those 9 geometric shapes, And for all intents and purposes, we're not going to tackle the lines and the channels and stuff just yet. But for all intents and purposes, though, you've got 9 geometric shapes. Some of those are going to be colored in, and some of those are going to be white. So you'll see in this particular chart, there's a white triangle pointing up. There's 2 white triangles on the left and the right, and then another smaller right triangle sort of just to the bottom of the yellow diamond. There's a white square at the bottom. And you'll also see that there are things colored in on this chart. There's a green triangle, brown square, yellow diamond, red square. Okay, so some of the things are colored in, some of those are white. And everybody's going to have centers colored in unless, one exception here, if you are a human design type, and you'll see at the bottom of your chart, it'll tell you your human design type. There are 5 human design types. They're manifestors, generators, manifesting generators, projectors, and reflectors. We are not going to talk about type that much tonight. You will learn about type in the free report that I'm going to send you. But if you are a reflector type, and you're very rare if you are, you won't have any of these shapes colored in. But most of us are going to have some colored in and some white. The vocabulary that we use around this goes like this. So I'm going to give you some new vocabulary words, so roll with me here for a minute. Anything that's colored in, any of the shapes that are colored in, we call those defined. Any of the shapes that are open, or any of the centers that are open, any of the centers that are white, that was a trick, right? Any of the centers that are white, we call open. So the colored in centers are defined. The white centers are open, or sometimes you'll hear me say undefined. So white is open, colored is defined. Here's where it gets interesting, because the colors on your chart tell us a lot about how you experience energy. So anything that's on your chart that's colored in, that's you. That's your authentic self. That's who you really are. This is defined energy, and it's energy that you have consistent access to. This is the energy that people feel coming off of you. This is the energy that you have all of the time. This is the truth for you. This is who you are. This is what you experience. This is what you may, if you're really not living an authentic life yet, if you're really just discovering who you really are, you might feel inside of yourself that there's sort of this secret self, this part of yourself that hasn't really had a chance to be fully made manifest in your life or be fully expressed. Usually that sense of yourself that's deep within yourself that maybe you haven't had a chance to experience out in the world fully in your whole lifetime, that usually is that sense of your secret self, that inner self, tends to be your definition, the part of you that's consistent and strong. But here's what happens. Over time, when we go out into the world, we take in energy from other people, as well as give off energy to other people. There's a give and take of energy between humans happening all the time. Whatever is consistent in you, whatever is colored in, that's what you're broadcasting out to the world. Wherever you have white or open centers, that's where you are taking in energy from other people. So you're bringing that energy in from others. Not only that, you're taking it in, you're also amplifying it. So if you look at the triangle on the right-hand side of the chart, that triangle on the right-hand side of the chart is the center for emotional energy. We call it the emotional solar plexus. When you have that center open or white, it means you are experiencing emotional energy from others, or you are what we call an empath. Now, if you have this colored in, but you're still an empath, don't panic. There are lots of other places where you can be empathic too. So it doesn't mean you're not empathic if you have this colored in. But if you have this open, it definitely means that you feel or sense other people's emotional energies. Not only do you feel or sense it, you actually amplify it. So what happens oftentimes in dynamics in relationships is people who have the center open, by the way, that's half of you. Half of you will have this open or white. You will feel other people's emotional energies. And oftentimes that creates a behavioral pattern in life of thinking that you have big, big feelings. And you do to a certain degree because you're experiencing an amplified expression of everybody else's emotional energy. And B, because you feel things so intently, it often means that you will tiptoe around truth and conflict and be a really uber nice person in your relationships because you don't want anybody to get mad at you, because if they get mad at you, you're going to feel it twice as much because you're emotionally open. And so you're going to have to then deal with that overload of emotional energy. So the tendency here sometimes when this is open is to avoid truth and conflicts, to make nice and oftentimes compromise what you really want and need in the name of keeping everybody else happy. Remember, whatever is colored in is what you'll most likely experience consistently. So as I go through the next section in this program, I'm actually going to walk you through what's colored in the chart, in your chart. If you have one of these elements, I'm going to actually go through specific things and I'm going to relate them specifically to the energy of fear. So I want you to look at your charts as I go through this and really look at, oh, I have this colored in. When this is colored in, it means that I am most likely consistently experiencing this specific kind of fear. Okay? So anything that's colored in your chart, if I talk about something and you go, oh, I've got that. If I do that and you have it, it's like playing human design bingo, right? If you have it, you can go, oh, I am most likely experiencing consistently this particular fear. But here's the thing. I'm talking about the chart. We all have every element of the chart. It's just that if it's colored in, you have it consistently. If it's white, you'll experience a lot of variability in it from the people around you, but you still have that energy. In addition, later on, I'm going to talk about a concept called conditioning, meaning there are factors in our lives that especially consistent exposure to certain kinds of energies that imprint us, and we oftentimes really feel like we have energies sometimes that we don't because we've been imprinted by those energies from our families and from the people around us. Okay? So as I'm talking about this, don't go, well, I don't have this, but I still feel this fear. That's okay. That's okay. I want you, as I'm talking about these different potential fears in the chart, I want you to really check in with yourself and go, okay, is this an issue for me or not? Really feel it for yourself, because in the end, the chart's going to give us a lot of information about what to look for in terms of the kinds of fears that you're going to be most likely prone to. But it's also going to tell, well, and in the end, let's say you were my coaching client, I would still, in spite of what the chart said, I would still look to you for the final verification of, does that feel right for you? Does this feel like an issue for you? Does this feel like a challenge for you? Because in the end, the goal of human design is not for you to go, God, I have this great chart. The goal in human design is to teach you to learn how to discover what's true and right for you. And there's nobody in this world, no teacher, no leader, nobody in this world can tell you what's correct for you. There's an inner place inside of you, your own inner authority. And human design teaches you ultimately how to connect to that. And healing by human design teaches you how to get all the stuff that's in the way that might be keeping you from connecting to that out of the way. Okay? But in the end, you're the only one that knows this about yourself. You're the only one that can assess, is this what's going on with you or not? So trust yourself. Trust your inner initial impulse when you go through this and go, this feels like me. If it feels like you, go with that. Don't worry about what the chart says. But it is kind of cool to look at. Where is all this stuff playing out? So anything that you have colored in, you're going to most likely experience the energies that I'm talking about consistently. Any of these gates and these aspects in the chart that you have white, you're most likely going to experience in a variable way. And not just variable. Remember, wherever we have white in the chart, we don't just take it in, we take it in and amplify it, okay? So you're going to have consistency or variability depending on whether it's colored in or white. All right. Let's keep rolling on. Instinctive fear is normal, natural, and healthy, all right? As we talked about, it's a good instinct to not eat the purple mushrooms with the yellow mushrooms, the purple polka dots, I can't remember, okay? It's a good instinct to use when you hear the bear and do whatever you need to do to get away from the bear. It's good instinct to not go into a dark alley at night. Okay? You need to have these kinds of fears. This instinct is vital. It keeps you alive and healthy. But if you were a dog, maybe not even a dog, because I have 2 dogs and I think they're way complicated, especially one of them is a drama dog. But if you are an animal, for the most part, you're operating to a great degree from this instinctive place, this survival sense, right? You have this survival sense and it keeps you alive, it keeps you reacting and engaging correctly in your environment so that you stay alive. But for human beings, it gets a little bit more complicated, all right? In human beings, we've got the mind, we've got our sense of lovability, our sense of value, we have our sense and our need of belonging, our desire to do for others, our desires to fulfill our creative potential. We've got so much complicated stuff going on in our hardwiring that we're not just simply instinctive beings. We can override our instinct. You can overthink your instinct, right? You start to feel afraid about getting on the plane and you start to talk yourself out of it and you get on the plane and then something happens, right? Or you can experience other more complex permutations of being human. And it's just, you gotta, trying to tease out what's going on as a human being and what you're experiencing is really, really difficult because here we have this complex, high-functioning, brilliant mind, right? This enormous capacity to manipulate, create, belong, empower, lead, all this stuff that we do as human beings. And then in the middle of that, we have this little kind of, I'm not going to say primitive, but vital instinctive center that reacts in this survival-based thing. And what happens for us a lot of times as human beings is that whole hardwiring gets really mixed up and entangled. And instead of being afraid of things like the bear or eating the wrong mushroom, we get deathly afraid, literally deathly afraid. Our body acts as if we are being threatened with death to do things like present a proposal to a new client. My God, if I do this and I fail, I'm going to die, right? Not true, but it feels like that inside of us because the instinct center gets twisted up with our hardwiring as humans. We get afraid of things like, well, I can't move into the future and do this. I don't know what to expect. I don't know what's going to happen. I could die. And it usually has nothing to do with dying and everything to do with, hey, you just need to go get in the car and open up a new bank account, right? But our minds make this instinctive process very, very complex and very, very interesting. We have to relate this instinct and the hardwiring that happens for us in instinct and the complexity of that hardwiring and how it plays out in our human experience. We have to bring it back to the spleen. Your spleen center is the center for fear, instinct, survival, and time. If it is white, you're going to be highly sensitive, intuitive. You're going to have a tendency sometimes, if this is white, to hold on to things for longer than you should. Because you're amplifying other people's fears and other people's instincts here, you can become paralyzed in fear. Because this is the center for being, for health and wellness and the immune system, you can actually be medically empathic. So you may even feel other people's illnesses or things that are going on with other people's bodies. And because this is open, so it doesn't have consistency and it varies a lot, you may oftentimes struggle with having a really concrete, consistent sense of time. And you might either lose sense of time and be perpetually late, or you might overcompensate for your lack of sense of timing and struggle with time and like be the one that's always ready 2 and 3 hours early because you don't want to be late and you're overcompensating for your lateness. So if you have an open spleen, you're going to feel all of this energy, all of this fear, all of this instinct, all of this medical stuff, all of this fluidity of time. You're going to get all of this from other people. If you have a defined spleen, you have your own sense of timing, your own instinct. You have a very powerful immune system, but you don't always sense, it's not sensitive, it's powerful. So you don't always sense when there's shifts and fluctuations. So sometimes you don't notice you're sick until you're really, really sick. You don't have the tendency to hold on to things. You're intuitive, but in a very different way. You're instinctive. So as we go through these next slides after this, I have a little cartoon here for you. This is the dinosaurs with the open spleens, right? They have a fluid sense of timing. So as I go through the next section of the chart, I'm going to talk about, or the next section of the program, I'm going to talk about the 9 root causes of fear, where you can find them in the chart, and how those might be showing up for you in your life. So the first thing that we're going to talk about when we talk about the 9 root causes of fears, we're going to talk about the 7 fear gates of the spleen. Remember, the spleen has instinct. The instinct of the spleen is to go deep and have the knowledge necessary and the intuitive connection and the awareness of what needs to happen in the moment being the operative word, to keep you safe, healthy, surviving, and alive, okay? But as I said, the hardwiring here for humans is a little bit more complicated than it is for animals. So what that means is that the energies here can have also very human fears associated with them. And again, these are human fears that get entangled with our instinct and ultimately keep us paralyzed in fear. Here's what happens with this spleen, with this splenic energy and these 7 gates of fear in the spleen. Because the spleen is the center for time, and this is true, by the way, if you have the center white, or if you have the center colored in, and when it's colored in, it's always going to be brown. Because fear and instinctive fear triggers in us the fight or flight response. And when you can't fly away from certain situations, like you can't necessarily fly away from your job, or you can't necessarily fly away from your own desire to create something different in your life, because every morning you got to get up and go look at yourself in the mirror, right? What happens here is we tend to, when we experience these 7 fears, we tend to get locked up in paralysis. We can't flight. We can't fight. We can't go into that whole adrenaline charged thing because there's nothing really to run from except our own self, and you can't escape yourself. You're kind of stuck with yourself. So what happens is we tend to shut down and we can become paralyzed here, literally, in these fears. But here's the thing. If you have any of these 7 fears of the spleen, if you've got any of this stuff going on, this is the only place in the human design chart where I am going to tell you it's okay to feel the fear and do it anyway. And here's why. Because the spleen is all about time, and most specifically, it's about in the moment time. It's about now. You can get paralyzed in these fears. You can resist dealing with them literally for years. Okay? Literally for years. The minute, and I mean literally, the minute you push through them, because this is a time-related center, the minute you push through them is the minute they dissipate. You don't stay in your fear of the bear forever unless you have post-traumatic stress syndrome, and that's something completely different. And then you need to work on releasing that fear from an emotional and mental cognitive level. That's something that's trapped in your energy field and in your cognition, your physiology, and that's a whole different beast. That's no longer a fear, that's trauma. But if you are not experiencing trauma, but you are experiencing paralysis here, if you push through this is truly the place where if you feel the fear, then do it anyway. It dissipates because it's time limited. And you'll go through whatever it is that you need to go through to get to the other side of it. And as soon as you start taking action on it, you'll get through it and you'll go, oh my God, why did I let that hold me back for so long? Some of you maybe already had this experience where you've resisted something for a long, long time and you finally go do it and you're like, oh my God, that was nothing. No, I'm not going to say it's nothing. Okay, and I'm definitely not poo-pooing. If any of you are paralyzed in any of these fears, these are very, very real. Okay, I'm not saying that they're not real. I am saying, however, they are intense, and you will experience them in an intense way. So let's go through those. So the gate 48, coming off the top left-hand side of the spleen, is the gate of depth, D-E-P-T-H. It's the gate of depth. It's depth of knowledge, depth of understanding, depth of mastery. In its low expression, this energy in the chart, especially when it's colored in, has the tendency to express itself as a fear of inadequacy. If you have this fear, you might have a tendency to be a workshop addict. I just need one more training, one more certificate. I need to take a mentorship program. I need to have somebody work with me. I need to do 500 free sessions first before I feel like I have enough experience to be able to be competent to do what I came here to do. You will overcompensate with your knowledge and still be terrified to go out and do something new because you'll be afraid that you don't know what you need to know or have the experience that you need to have. And the bottom line is you're only going to get the knowledge and the experience by going out and doing it. So here's one of those places where, as I said, you can just do it anyway. The second gate that we're going to look at is the gate 57. The gate 57 in human design is the most intuitive of all the gates. This is actually the psychic gate in the chart. Okay, so if you have this colored in, you have a fixed and consistent way of being intuitive. By the way, we all have this gate. Let me remind you that if you have this open or white in your chart, you still are also intuitive, okay? If you have this colored in, though, you will be most likely to experience a fear of the future or fear of the unknown. I don't know what to expect. I don't know what's going to happen. What if I'm not prepared? What if I don't have what I need? And you get stuck, unable to move forward because you are afraid of the future. The gate 44 is all about understanding and recognizing patterns of the past. I actually find that a lot of people who are healers have this gate because one of the things that they're really good at is helping people shift and break free from the patterns of the past. This is also, by the way, the gate of smell. And you might find if you have this gate that you have a very strong sense of instinctive or intuitive smell. We say in English, we say you can smell a rat. You know, this is that instinctive place of sensing or smelling when something's out of alignment somehow. The 44 has a deep sense of fear of the past. I'm afraid to move forward in my life because what if the patterns of the past repeat themselves again? Okay? So the challenge for the 44 is breaking through that fear that the past will repeat itself again, feeling the fear and doing it anyway. The gate 50. The gate 50 is a loving, nurturing energy. Oftentimes people who have this energy really love to do things like cook, take care of other people. It's also a place where we hold values. Legal systems and rules and laws are set up in this gate with this energy. But it's mostly a really responsible, obligated, caring, nurturing energy. When you have this gate colored in, you have a tendency to have a fear of failing your responsibility or a fear that you will let everybody in your life who you love down. The gate 32 is part of the business circuitry. This is the energy of waiting for the right time to manifest an idea into form. People with the 32 colored in often are more likely to experience a fear of failing, which, by the way, shows up in a couple of different places in the chart. So if you don't have this colored in, that doesn't mean you don't have that fear. Again, feel this fear and do it anyway, if the timing is correct. The gate 28. If you've ever studied other human design teachers, you will find that sometimes people call this gate the gate of struggle. I'm not a big fan of that name. I like to call it the gate of adventure. Okay? The challenge for the gate of 28 is to discover through your own adventures and experiences what's truly meaningful in life and ultimately what's really worth fighting for in life. If you have the 28, oftentimes consciously or unconsciously, you have a tendency to take the most adventurous route through whatever it is that you do. I always joke, my husband has this, and he's an architect, so I think that already makes him a little bit different than most people, because architects are interesting people. But we can't drive through the city without him going through the alleyways. He loves to drive through alleys, right? This is his gate 28. Let's have an adventure. Let's go through the alley, right? The gate 28 has a fear that life has no meaning, that all your efforts, all your struggles, all your adventures will not have been meaningful, and it will have just been a waste of time and energy. The gate 18. The gate 18 is a very, very powerful and important energy. This is a place where we have perfectionism in the chart. People with the gate 18 have a fear that they'll never get it right. So sometimes that fear of never getting it right holds them back from ever trying at all. So if you have the gate 18 colored in, you're going to be more likely to experience this. Again, this is the place where you feel the fear and do it anyway. Any of these splenic fears can ultimately impact the immune system. If you get paralyzed and stuck long enough, because it actually triggers that fight or flight and a low-grade stress response or an adrenaline response that goes on consistently over time. The adrenaline system is designed to have a burst of energy and then recover and heal. It operates in pulses. If you are full on with adrenaline all the time, it actually ultimately takes down the entire endocrine system and ultimately impacts your immune system. So it's really crucial, not just for the sake of creating excitement and joy and potential and manifesting it in your life and liberating yourself from paralysis. It's actually really crucial for your health to break free from these energies, because it'll actually augment your health, your immune system, and keep you healthier and stronger. All right, let's talk about other sources of fear in the chart. When we look at this chart is a compilation of 5 energy types. There are, if you look at your chart, there's a little fraction on your chart. There are 12 of those little fractions. Those are called profiles. There are 64 gates in that chart. Each one of those 64 gates has the potential to show up in 6 different lines. You don't need to know all this. I'm just showing you that there's some complex math happening here. There's 9 geometric shapes. There are a lot of really powerful, important combinations of energies in a human design chart. I like to think of the human design chart as being a catalog of all of the human archetypes. If I look at all of the all of the archetypes in the chart and distill them down in the context of fear and in the context of energies that sometimes hold us back from fulfilling our potential. If I took all of those archetypes and all of those themes of those archetypes and swooshed them around in a big blender, what I come up with in the end are 9 key energies, 9 key resiliency qualities that are a synthesis of all of the archetypes in the charts. These 9 resiliency keys represent basic human needs. Okay, so those 9 resiliency keys are lovability, empowerment, courage, decisiveness, emotional wisdom, self-trust, leveraging energy, self-worth, and authenticity. So let me just roll this out for you. If you don't feel lovable, the fear that you won't be loved anytime you take any kind of an action in your life will hold you back. And these are fears, these resiliency keys are bigger fears. These are fears that are oftentimes embedded not only in our bodies, but they're embedded in our auras. They're embedded in what's called the emotional body and the mental body, which I'm going to show you about in a minute. They are manifestations of possibilities out of the quantum field. And until we redefine our perception of these energies and give these energies new kinds of meanings, new definitions, until we oftentimes work on more subtle energy levels, it's difficult to just feel these fears and push through them. If you're afraid that you're not lovable, you can't just wake up one morning and go, okay, forget it, I'm just going to do this anyway. Because it's probably embedded within you in a much more complex and deeper way than just a splenic fear. If you are feeling like you're afraid of being powerful, or you are afraid that you are not powerful, That's a resiliency key. Again, you're going to need to tackle that on multiple levels because there's probably multiple sources and multiple embedments. That energy of lack of power, or that fear of power, is probably embedded in your aura in many, many layers. If you have the inability to tap into your courage to be authentic, to be powerful, to be lovable, to be decisive, this isn't splenic courage. This is other kinds of courage. If you're not tapped into your courage, you got to heal that on multiple levels. If you are afraid to make good and strong decisions, people are oftentimes afraid of making decisions, not just because of the splenic issues, but for a lot of issues, including sometimes they're afraid that they can't trust themselves. Sometimes they're afraid that their energy is going to go away. Sometimes they're afraid if they make a decision, it's going to impact other people deeply. There are a lot of things that happen with not being able to make good and strong decisions. If you're afraid to make a decision, you got to tackle that on multiple levels. Emotional energy is complex with humans. Our emotional energy is actually the source of our alchemical / creative powers. If you're not connected to your emotions and if you don't understand how to work with and augment and manage your emotions and understand what your emotions are telling you, it actually shuts down your creative capacity in a big, big way. If you've got a fear of your emotions or a fear of understanding or tapping in or tuning into your emotions or connecting with your emotions or being real about your emotions, you oftentimes you've got to really look at that on multiple levels. I'm going to talk about some of those levels and what those levels are in just a minute. If you are not trusting yourself, you don't trust yourself to do the right thing, if you don't trust your capability, if you don't trust your readiness, if you don't trust yourself, if you don't trust your own intuition, it'll make it very difficult for you to be resilient, and there's a lot of things probably keeping you from that. If you don't feel like anything you do if you don't feel like you have the energy, to do anything you want to do in your life, if you're burned out emotionally, spiritually, or physically, or all three, and that happens to a lot of us, and a lot of times that's happening because we're using so much energy trying to do something we're not, or trying to keep ourselves together when we're feeling so much fear. If you're not physically vital and healthy and making choices that are in alignment with that physical health and wellness and that vitality, it's going to be difficult for you to make choices and good decisions because you're going to be terrified that anything you do is going to rob you of more energy. And sometimes we don't have any extra energy. We can't afford to waste any energy. So we shut down and we become afraid. If you don't value yourself, and this is different than loving yourself, if you don't value yourself, you're going to be afraid to go out into the world and stand in that value and get what you are worthy of in your life. And if you're afraid to be who you are, to really express the truth of who you are, it will take a whole lot of energy to hold up a mask and to be something you're not. If you've got anything going on in these 9 resiliency keys, these are fears. These are sources of fear that you cannot just feel and do anyway. So when people tell you, for example, I take a lot of business trainings because I love business, right? And a lot of times we'll talk about, you got to own your throne. You just got to step into your sense of self-worth, and you just got to get in there and you got to be the queen and, own your business. And, you can't just go in there and overcome with your mind, your self-worth stuff. You got to work on looking at what's going on with this. What's the source of this? How do I need to move this out of my body? Is this even mine? Is this something I picked up from somebody and I've carried it with me for multiple generations in my cells? There are a lot of sources of fear in these resiliency keys. And to get to the root of that, you really got to understand how to tackle it on multiple levels, which I'm going to talk about in just a minute. There are some other reasons that keep us stuck beyond just our minds and beyond just our human design charts. But I thought I'd throw this in here because this is always kind of fascinating and sometimes explains a lot for some people. Your human design, your energy blueprint, who you are, is inherited from your grandparents. So if you could run your own human design chart, and then you could actually have access, and sometimes it's hard to do this because we didn't keep birth data in the same way, but if you could access your grandparents' birth data and run their charts, you would see that there's probably a lot of similarity between your chart and your grandparents' chart. Same thing is true for those of you who are parents. Your children have inherited their design from your parents. What happens is we get this every other generation theme playing, so that as a parent, you're dealing with your parents first, and then when you give birth to your children, you're dealing with oftentimes the same energy dynamics, different people, but same energy dynamics, and intergenerational energy dynamics or patterns or habits are repeated over and over and over again from generation to generation to generation. So sometimes the stuff, the behavioral patterns that you have, and even the imprinting and the conditioning you have, isn't even because of you, it's because of intergenerational family patterns that you've been raised in and you've been imprinted by. And frankly, I think this is one of the most powerful and I think most beautiful reasons to do healing work of any kind. I certainly would say in using the Healing by Human Design system, I've done work with people that has completely and totally shifted their family dynamics. And what happens is you end up getting healing going in multiple directions and multiple generations simultaneously. And it's pretty touching and moving to witness, frankly. Some of the fear that you experience beyond your human design is fear that's influenced by your lineage and your genetics. We call this epigenetic conditioning. Over the last 20 years, scientists and geneticists have discovered that there are protein codes on the DNA strands that actually influence how the DNA is expressed. And those protein codes, the epigenetic codes are actually influenced by, and this is a brain twister, so some of you this might not be such a big deal, but for me, when I really had to sit and think about this, it was a really big brain bender for a while. In embryology, the female embryo, the eggs in the ovary of a female embryo are fully matured. All the eggs a girl or a woman is ever going to produce in her lifetime are already fully mature and present in her ovaries when she's born. Now that's already kind of a cool thing to think about. So you've been hanging out with your mama since she got here, okay? Now, just to make this a little bit more interesting, remember she was growing inside your grandma. So the egg that became you was growing inside your mother's ovary, inside your grandmother's womb. Now, the reason why this is important is that epigeneticists are discovering that we have within us a matrilineal lineage that can be emotional, that is epigenetic, meaning on the DNA code, and that our grandmother's experiences and our grandmother's fears, traumas, belief systems, circumstances under which she was pregnant, etc., our grandmothers influence our genetic expression. Now, you can carry that back more farther than grandmothers if you want to, because you can. But the bottom line is sometimes the things that we are afraid of are not found in our energy blueprint. They come from our heritage. That doesn't mean you can't release it. But again, that does mean that it's a little bit more complicated to get that out, to get that release, to move it out of your system, out of your body, and to actually shift and change not only your experience of fear, but actually change your genetic coding so that you begin to express a different gene code, or at least have your gene code, the influence of the epigenetic codes outside of your genes can change and can actually change the way your genes express. So I think that's a pretty powerful and profound thing to look at. So if you look at the human being, and if you've heard of the aura, and I'm sure most of you have, you have an energy field around you. And actually, there were many years when I used to teach this material way before we had a deeper understanding of epigenetics, and even before we had an understanding of things like morphogenetic fields, which if you look at the work of Dr. Rupert Sheldrake, basically says that oftentimes there is an energy blueprint for the manifestation of things such as a human body. For example, embryologists to this day still don't know how do we get from a sperm cell, an egg cell, a blastocele to an individual that has all kinds of differentiated cells like brain cells, heart cells, lungs, etc. There is no scientific evidence yet of how this happens, and there's a lot of beliefs in the quantum field, the field of quantum physics, that there's actually an energy blueprint for the body, and that energy blueprint actually manifests the body. When we look at the energy, the body is having an energy field. There are different layers to this energy field. This is actually a synthesis of multiple healing modalities, including traditional Western medicine, quantum medicine, Eastern medicine, acupuncture, acupressure, Ayurveda, all kinds of different modalities synthesized into this understanding. So this particular understanding that I'm going to give you is literally a synthesis of multiple sciences of healing, some of them ancient, some of them more modern. But I want you to understand this, because I think when we talk about healing and we talk about psychology and we talk about, medicine, we are oftentimes talking about only one tiny aspect of this particular image or this particular aura of the human body. When we are talking about dealing with the body from a traditional Western medicine perspective, we are dealing strictly with the physical body. When we talk about Ayurveda, or we talk about acupuncture and some of these more subtle energy modalities, we are looking at tackling the body on a vital level. When we talk about psychology and we talk about energy psychology, even, we're working on the mental, emotional level. When we talk about miracles and miracle healings, we're looking at healing in the supramental and the bliss body level. I'm showing you this, and I'm going to go through what these all mean in just a second, because I want you to understand that there is no, first of all, there's no one correct way to tackle any of this. Number two, if we're only tackling one little piece of it, we're missing out on the potential to integrate healing on multiple levels of energy. So let's break this down for just a minute, and then I'm going to revisit this. The physical level of the aura is the actual manifestation of the physical body. This is what your body's doing. Is your body doing well? Is your body in a state of healing, or is your body in a state of chaos, fear, etc.? The second level, or the second layer, is called the vital body. The vital body is actually where the blueprint for your health and wellness is stored. When we look at human design, part of human design is about the blueprint for your vital body. So your human design chart, when I look at a human design chart, I can look at where are your physical vulnerabilities and where are your physical strengths, what needs to happen for you to live out the full manifestation of that blueprint for health. The mental and the emotional layer of the aura is what we call the conditioning field. This is where you store your thoughts, your belief systems, your feelings, all of your life experiences. Anything that's happened to you in this incarnation, this lifetime, is stored in this layer of the energy field, or your aura, and it determines ultimately the health of your physical blueprint and also ultimately the health of your body. Human design also shows us a lot about what's happening in your conditioning field. So when I look at a human design chart, I can look at what's your blueprint for health. Where do you have potential for being out of balance? Where do you have strengths? Where do you have potential vulnerabilities in your mental and your emotional body, as well as strengths in your mental and emotional body? And then lastly, for all intents and purposes, the outer two layers of the aura is the supramental. This is where we have the non-manifest reality. I like to call it the quantum field of finite possibility. And I say finite because this is where we have all of the archetypes for being human and the earthly experience. So from this layer of the aura, we have all of the rules and regulations and all of the possibilities and the archetypes of being human. Okay, so this is where we store all the data for the human potential and the human possibility. And then it's finite because, off of the planet, there are bunches of other things we can accomplish when we're not manifested as human beings on the planet. And the outermost level of the aura is called the Bliss Body. This is the quantum field of infinite possibility. This is where we have all the rules and all the potentials of anything that could ever happen in the world, including breaking the rules of being on the planet, like levitating and There are some people who can actually tap into this field of quantum infinite possibility and do things like manifest apples out of thin air. Okay? Let's talk for just a minute why you can't just blast through fear if you've got anything going on in these 9 resiliency keys. If you've got anything going on in your 9 resiliency keys, your fear is probably embedded in multiple layers of your energy body, as well as potentially in your physical body. Fear triggers a deep physiological response. You have to know how to reassign meaning to your specific fears so that you can bypass your physiology. You have to know how to rethink what's happening to you, and you have to give it new meaning. Because if you can't give it new meaning, you can't heal it. Human design shows us that actually 1/8 of the people on this planet actually have willpower. The rest of us don't. So we can't draw on willpower we don't have to blast through our fears and where we might be carrying our fears. We've created a healing modality that works across all the layers of the body to help you redefine the meaning of your experience so you can create something different. This system is a synthesis of human design, energy psychology, subtle energy therapies. We use actually custom blended flower essences and essential oils, as well as a unique system and a specific system based on your chart that gives you a way to access the quantum field to help you heal the root of pain and create a different reality and a different experience. And just for fun, here's what one of my students said recently about one of our Healing by Human Design classes. I just want to throw this out here because I want you to understand that for years and years, we've been tackling fear. We've been tackling the release of trauma. We've been tackling pain. And we've only been dealing with one layer of it. Or we've only been dealing with the symptom of it and not the root of it. It's really crucial if we want to work on healing on a permanent level and redefining meaning of pain and fear and all these things that keep us stuck and keep us from fulfilling our potential. We have to tackle it on multiple levels. And having human design as a key component of this really helps you transcend and break free. And also, not only that, not just transcend and break free, but actually helps you specifically target what's going on with you. So you're not doing this spaghetti throwing, hunt and peck kind of guess game. Even with an energy psychology technique, there's a certain amount of intuition or guesswork that happens. This really allows you to look at the chart and go, okay, here we have somebody that really has a deep potential to question their lovability. Let's start there. But I want to end with this. There is a word in South African called Ubuntu, which took me a long time to find and spell because I'm not from South Africa, but it's such a beautiful word. And it's my new favorite word. When you translate this word, it basically means this: I am because you are. If you think about this world, who we are today, especially if you think about it in the context of what you learned just tonight in human design, you have your energy. You have places where you experience energy from others. Other people have their energy. They experience your energy. We are all in this dynamic flow of energy, and we are all unified in this dynamic flow of energy. Who I am today is because you are on this planet. If you left this planet, the configuration of who we all are together changes. We are not who we are today if you're not here. The most important thing you can do for the world is to show up in the fullest expression of you as you, because you add to the greater good of the whole. So if you don't do anything tonight, if you don't walk away with anything tonight, but an awareness of how vital you are to the world and how important it is, not only for yourself, because you are worthy of creating a life where you are not afraid, but to also add that courage to the bigger mix of what's available for all of us as options and possibilities in this world. That showing up and that being the full expression of who you are is the greatest gift you can give to the world. And I hope and I pray for all of you tonight that you go home and you take decisive, powerful steps tonight and tomorrow and for the rest of your life, every day, to push through that fear, do what you came here to do, and be who you came here to be. So thank you. So thank you all so much for joining us tonight. I hope you learned a lot. I hope you got at least a sneak peek into what you can do to bust through some of the fear that might be keeping you stuck. I hope you remember how worthy you are of creating a life for yourself that is a reflection of your loveliness, your value, your beauty, your magnificence, your power, and everything you came here to do. So I appreciate you all. Good night.